Welcome back to our show. Really excited to dive into the finale, the final part of the Way of Kings book. It's been a long journey so far. I mean, 4 weeks for you, potentially, 4 hours for you guys getting through the whole series. But we're here now in the final.
Four weeks. It's been great. It's been an awesome reread. I can't believe how much I enjoyed it, even compared to the first time that I read it. It was like there were many of the same emotions that I experienced that were the exact same from the first time that I read it, and I knew it was coming. Yeah, I loved it.
It's a powerful moment and one that I always appreciate. It's almost that you tell people that they have to read through the whole book to be in the right state of mind to appreciate the finale, to appreciate the end. And I mean, you get close to tears every time. Yes. It's a powerful moment.
I actually love how you phrase that because, again, I always try to explain these moments to my wife. And as I realize, as I'm explaining these moments, I'm thinking, oh, wow, you actually do need the 40 hours of buildup for this moment to actually be crazy.
So can I just say one thing? What you're telling me is it's the journey, not the destination?
I believe so.
I think that is a cool moment and a good example of that. Speaking of journeys, though, we got here. We are in a different podcast studio, which you may notice. It's not the same. It's not my basement anymore. Yeah,
the studio is called Ryan's Room. It's a great studio.
It is pretty nice. Yes. It's very, very nice in here.
Ryan is my brother, by the way, but very grateful for him letting us borrow his room. So
we're on vacation / family Thanksgiving time. So we're all down here in Arizona.
Yeah, we're actually both from Arizona, by the way. Fun fact.
Hence, family Thanksgiving in Arizona.
Yes, not for the same family though. We have both.
As you might notice.
Families, so. Yeah, Jaden actually drove like an hour to get here from where he's staying with his family.
Yeah, but it's worth it. It's worth it to be here for the podcast, to make it happen, to not miss a week, so that all of you guys are wonderful, wonderful subscribers and listeners to the podcast have something to listen to this week. As Thanksgiving is being prepared and you're hungry, you just need something to distract you.
We are grateful for you, and we did not forget you.
Yes, we are very thankful. We're thankful for everyone listening to this podcast. We're thankful for Brandon Sanderson. We're thankful for
that random guy who made comments that didn't like our video because we don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Grateful for him. He's a good guy.
Hey, a comment helps the algorithm.
Yeah,
I'll take it every time.
I'll take it. We'll take it.
So I appreciate you. We appreciate you. Well, I'm excited to get into talking through some of the major points of this one. And I think one of the things that I'm most excited about is the side stories. I mean, we get a story from Wit / Hoyd.
Love the Wit stories.
That's Wandersail, right?
Yes.
I want to start there. I think that's a fantastic place to start because I want to warm into the moments where we get to talk about Dalinar and the bridge cruise and betrayal and leadership.
Well, who doesn't love a good Wit story? People love them so much that Sanderson ended up writing his whole entire books just in Wit's storytelling fashion.
And which one is that?
That is Tress of the Emerald Sea.
Okay, I need to read that one.
The number one. And I haven't read the others, but I'm assuming it's also the same for Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. Okay. And I'm not sure if the Sunlit Man is in his voice as well.
What are we going to read next?
Next, though, we are going to be getting into Murtagh. And so we will come back to Brandon Sanderson after that, but it's so new. We're excited to get into it.
It's sitting on my desk. We've obviously been reading Way of Kings this whole time. And it's like something like 12, 13, 14 hours of reading to get to each of these episodes. So if even just for that, don't forget to drop a like on the video and share this podcast with a friend. But it's right there. It's sitting right next to it. Murtagh is there on my desk. I'm just waiting. I haven't even read the first page.
I know.
So excited to do it.
I don't even know how this is going to go. I'm just really hoping that his writing style has progressed a lot more because he was good. I really enjoyed him, but he wrote those first books when he was a teenager, essentially, right? At his end of his teenager years. So he's got to be a better writer by now. So I'm really excited about that.
It's going to be a blast from the past for me to go back into Allegasia and experience that. So I'm excited for it, and I hope everyone else is excited for it. We're probably not going to be able to finish it by next week.
No,
it's like 600 pages or something.
I haven't even looked at. See, I do Audible with all these things, and my limit is about 12 to 14 hours.
There's no way it's on Audible already. It just came out.
Oh, all these books release at the same time with Audible. It's got to be on there already.
Oh,
yeah. They're thinking. They know.
That makes sense. But I'm also like, I guess in my mind, these guys are like, in the premiere, the audio readers, and they're like, "Oh, sweet, got my book now. Now I can read it."
Yeah, no, okay, they prepare ahead of time a lot of times.
So have you looked at it on Audible yet?
That's what I said. I need to look it up and see how many hours long it is. So
okay, so
I'm assuming it'll probably be about 2 parts, maybe 3 to do that book, but I'm betting it's around 2.
Well, so I'm gonna say expect a Murtagh video next. Don't expect the finale of Murtagh next.
Yes, for sure.
We'll make some progress, and we're excited to dive into it and give our reactive feedback, if you will.
Yeah, but jumping back into Wondersail.
Oh, yes.
What was
Good
this?
Call.
Yeah. So what was your favorite part about this? Why do you love the wit stories? And
I like the wit stories because of like the micro journey you get taken on, and I think I'm almost Kaladin. And as he's listening to the story and listening to the flute and listening just to those moments, it's cool because he's enraptured just as much as I am. He's like, oh man, like it's the way you tell a story, and I don't fancy myself a fantastic storyteller, but I definitely can appreciate a great storyteller.
Yeah.
And the way he tells and brings the story around, and I almost like his witty comments along the way, where he's like, "No, stop! I'm telling my story. You don't get to ask questions."
It's cool too because Kaladin's not interested at all from the beginning, right? And he does bring him in, just like what you're saying.
Yep.
He brings him with all the tactics, and he's like, "Why in the world? How are you going to play a flute and tell a story at the same time?" And Wit's like pretty much was like, "Shh, like let me do the story, and let me show you, and just watch." And he's able, I would love to see that pulled off in a movie. Just the way he's letting it echo off of the canyons, then come back and speaking and singing,
and the smoke and everything. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like he doesn't make it seem like it's as fantastic, and he's putting on this whole big production. He's like, I'm just gonna do my thing, and then he's like, oh, what was about the smoke and the echoes and the music? He's like, I don't know. It's whatever you thought it was.
And then it has the most powerful conclusions ever at the end. And he's like, so it means this. He's like, I don't know. It means whatever it means to you.
Which I think is a great way to just phrase stories in general. And the fact that every time you read a story, you can get something different out of it. I think I read this book and took some interesting lessons. Maybe it was our first or second episode. But we talked about the fact that you learn more about leadership often from a story or from a tale or even from history than you would from like a self-help book or a leadership book in general. And I think that's a good parallel to just reading in general and going through this book and learning different things about different types of leaders. I think it's cool. And I think that's one of the things that Wit really hammers home when he tells his stories. Just says, you know, you could take whatever you want out of the story, or you could take nothing out of the story. It doesn't really matter to me.
I love that.
It's not the storyteller's job to define the story, and if they do, then they're a poor storyteller.
Well, and it was a cool story too, right? The moral of the story was it to make sure that you're taking responsibility for the right things, and you're not trying to give responsibility to other people or other things in general.
I mean, maybe.
Oh yeah. I'm telling you how to think.
I think that was a similar takeaway that I got from Wondersail. So the overall concept of like the Emperor, who everyone was kind of blaming their actions on, was dead the whole time. So they were just murdering people randomly for essentially it fell on them, right? The people that actually performed the actions, the consequence of those actions should fall on them, which is why they kind of disintegrated as society.
Yeah, and if you don't remember the story, basically this person comes upon an island where anyone who makes a mistake who lives at the island, they just murder them and say like, well, you're not perfect, and the Emperor demands this. And then they find out the Emperor's been dead the whole time, and then they all end up uprising and burning down the city and murdering each other, and you kind of get this, at least I got the sense from the story, I'm like, why in the world? They just went nuts. But then it's such a cool perspective to say at the end, like, well, the real reason why they were so sad is because they realized that they had no one to blame but themselves for all the murders, because there was no emperor to blame. They were murderers themselves. I don't know. I thought that was cool. Very, very fascinating finish.
And it's often when, even in the story, like with Kaladin or Dalinar or life in general, when it feels like the situation almost dictates people's actions. Where it's like, oh, like the situation was this, so I just didn't do something honorable because whatever. And Sadeas, I think, uses that as an example here. He's like, well, you know, this is the situation. It's like, it's tough luck, but that's kind of what I had to do. Like, that's so far different than the elements of honor, which Dalinar is trying to become, right? Where it's the honor has to come from you. And I guess Kaladin learned this from his dad as well. Like, someone has to start. Someone has to be the honorable one. It has to come from them regardless of their situation. And I think that's exactly what he's trying to tell us. Wit's trying to tell us.
Yep. I love it. Wit. Coming in at the perfect time. Coming right for us. Loved that. And you mentioned Sadeas, by the way. Sadeas.
What a transition.
What a transition.
Let's do it.
He is probably one of the best villains I've read. He is,
really?
Yeah, he's just fantastic and freaky, as in like he's just so devious. And
yep, it's a good word. Vocab word.
Vocab word of the day, devious. But the reason why I say this though is the whole story, you think he's trying to be good, he's trying to do these good things for Dalinar, and Dalinar has just been assuming all of these things about Sadeas. But of course, by the end, we find out that Sadeas has really been doing all of these things as part of his play to undermine Dalinar the whole time. And even in the end, he says he's been planning this for months. It hasn't just been like a whim of the moment. Like that's terrifying.
It is, because then like even says in the story, Dalinar comes to question every single interaction they had. He's like, well, all of this was part of this ruse to just betray me eventually. Do you think he did it for the country or just for himself?
I think it's both. Yeah, I think anyone who's doing something like this has to be selfish in some way. And part of the problem is that every single war camp is super selfish, right? And that nobody wants to be united and be together. And so he thinks that the best move for the country and probably for his own group is to get rid of Dalinar, who's an annoyance.
Yeah. Well, because he's going directly against what they've enjoyed. This autonomy of we can all just get rich because, as we talked about in a previous episode, Elhokar is quite weak as a king overall. Even his mom says so I can say that.
Yeah,
but
true story.
He just kind of says, oh, the best way to lead is kind of to get out of these guys' way and to let them fight amongst themselves and do their own thing, and it's fine. And then out of that becomes Sadeas and the others who aren't willing to work together, who just see it as this is one free-for-all, and the more I work with other people, the less I get out of it, and just instantly becomes I think that the evil side of competitiveness, I don't know if that's a good way to portray it, but I think competitiveness in general can be a good thing, and it can be a very bad thing, and in this case, we get to see the bad side.
Very bad side, right? And he just tries to absolutely eliminate competition. He's done with it.
Do you think he's eliminating his own guilt? This is a thought that I had as I was thinking through kind of the Sadeas and Dalinar, because they were friends. They worked together. They vowed to protect the country, but I almost feel, as I'm reading the book, like Dalinar kind of represents Sadeas' guilt or his potential for guilt because he's trying to be a good person. And Sadeas is like, well, you weren't a good person and now you're trying to be a good person. What's that about? And then Sadeas doesn't feel like he has the same opportunity to make poor choices and get away with it because he can so clearly see a leader of a neighboring nation that is making good choices out of the honor of it.
So you would say that. So you do think he is feeling guilty then? Sadeas.
I think he feels guilty because he sees Dalinar. I think he's trying over and over and over to convince himself of something, and he tells himself over and over again, this is the right thing to do, this is the right thing to do, even though it's not. He just keeps telling himself that lie so that he can sleep at night. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then Dalinar is just this clear and obvious contrast to that. So he can clearly see, okay, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. I know that this is not right and honorable.
Yeah. Well, I think Sadeas, he even had a problem with Gavilar, right?
Yes, especially in the end when he was trying to become a good person.
Yeah. He just doesn't agree with that lifestyle. It's just different to him.
Yeah.
But he didn't follow it to the extreme. So I don't know. This book does a great job at just making you hate Sadeas by the end.
I would agree with that. Yeah, he's the worst.
I just can't just help but just feel like this huge just that guy. He's just terrible.
He's just weaselly.
Yeah, he is.
Don't like it.
What do you imagine him looking like?
A weasel.
I know.
Honestly.
I actually didn't catch until this part. He's got dark, brown, curly hair. Kind of like you. He looks like you. He just just kidding. Oh, no. I'm just kidding. He's not.
And this is the last episode. That's kind of concerning. But I do think everyone in this book seems to have dark, curly hair. I don't know why, but it's usually really long. When the first time I read this story, I didn't realize how many people had long hair.
Yeah, true.
It's just kind of wild, but they're living in wartime. I guess people don't care.
That's
as much.
True. Well, it kind of depends on what society you're looking at.
That's true.
Yeah. Dalinar's people
They're the ones that are clean shaven. Well, everyone's a Lethe, but
see, we remembered Alethi this time.
Yeah,
the word is Alethi.
Yep. Thank you to everyone who reminded us that we forgot that word.
And they seem to be a people that have darker hair, and they say darker tones of skin, and then the Azish are like the more like fair skinned is what
it's interesting how much people draw out of physical characteristics in this book.
I know.
In this whole world. And I think and Whit mentions it again in this one, I think near the end, probably multiple times, but I remember specifically when near the end when the Herald comes. But he basically says like, it's kind of interesting that light eyes, you could just do whatever you want. It's like just kind of a random feature.
Well, did you catch what he said? That he said it actually makes sense the way that they do things, like all things considered.
I feel like he said compared to other places.
He said compared to other places, but he also said that it makes sense for some reason. I feel like he was hinting at there being a reason for why this was set up like this in the first place.
Oh, yes.
And that really makes sense to me. It's classic Sanderson to have even the little things that you kind of go over your head, that Sanderson's like, yeah, this isn't a question that you had, but you did have it subconsciously. I'm going to answer it for you.
Why the light eyes were... So what is the explanation then? Why are the light eyes the higher of society?
Oh, I have no idea yet. I don't think we know the answer to this yet.
We don't?
Okay. Well,
I would say we do.
Kaladin gives an answer a little bit earlier, just saying like he mentions that whenever someone earns a shard blade, their eyes turn light. But I still kind of feel like that's not the answer of why the light eyes are higher class.
I thought it had to do with the fact that it was a representation of investiture of power, which is a lot of long words.
Whoa, okay, explain. This is deeper than I've gone.
Well, the reason I say it's literally entirely based on the fact that in all of Dalinar's visions, the heralds have very bright light eyes.
Yeah.
And in all of the stories of the legends, or people slay a shard bearer and their eyes turn from dark to light. But I almost hate saying that in the sense that it kind of negates the fact that, I mean, Kaladin's whole bridge crew is honorable people who are working hard to do good things, but they're all dark eyes. That doesn't necessarily mean that an individual has less, but I think it's related to the magic system of Roshar, that the investiture of power, of that specific power that they have to like manipulate Stormlight, the more you have that ability, the more Stormlight you hold, the lighter your eyes become. So technically, it would have to mean that you're more honorable of a person, because you've made those ideals, you've sworn those ideals, and become
that's interesting. Radiant. I think you could be on to something there. I guess more what I was thinking with it is that people had always seen people with light eyes as the honorable people with the shard blades and things like that. Yeah. But that doesn't... This is a spoiler for a later book, so I can't get into it, I guess. But, well...
So you're more saying it's like they've seen Radiance with light eyes, so then they assume people with light eyes are...
It's not a major spoiler, but it's just... If you summon a shard blade, it makes your eyes turn lighter, but they return back to the color they were before.
Because it's who you are.
Yeah. And so it's not like they're permanently light. And so I kind of wonder if in the past it kind of got lost over the thousands of years that like people can still be shard bearers and basically light eyes, but still have dark eyes. And so they just kind of said like, well, you're either light eyes or dark eyes, because that doesn't make sense to me that anyone can go back and forth. They can just go one direction. And so it was just kind of lost in the history and
that
things
makes
like
sense.
That.
Yeah.
Sanderson's very into that.
It's an interesting theory.
Yeah, of having just histories change over time. And I think that's fascinating. So that things get lost in it. Lost in the translation.
Definitely makes sense. Well, there were some powerful moments that I want to get into in this book.
Yeah.
A couple of them are related to Dalinar's visions.
Okay.
But before that, the most powerful moment, I think, from this entire book, I think it's time, is the battle between Dalinar and Sadeas and the Parshendi, and the absolute betrayal. It's shocking. It's intense. Yeah. The way it's written, it's just all of it.
Yeah. So to remind you all, what happens is Dalinar and Sadeas are doing a joint attack on the tower. And the tower's never been won before, but they think that they can win it because they're going to do the joint forces. They'll get the most Parshendi that have ever been there before. Dalinar and Sadeas work together. Sadeas convinces Dalinar to just use his bridges. Dalinar gets in there, basically splits the Parshendi in two so they can just sandwich them.
Yep.
From Sadeas' side and Dalinar's side. But then by the time Dalinar gets down the middle, he realizes that Sadeas is peacing out.
Yeah, Sadeas leaves, retreats, which means Dalinar's forces are completely surrounded by Parshendi.
Yeah.
And he has no means of escape, because even if he could fight to the edge, he'd still be locked into the Shattered Plains with no bridges to get away.
Yeah. And they said he could basically try and jump away with the shard plate, but shard plate, but who knows if he could even make the jump. And he'd have to leave all of his men behind, even if he could make the jump.
What was it, 4,000 men that he had when he realized when Sadeas left?
Well, he had started with 8,000.
Yeah, but he only had 4,000 left at this point.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it had already gone brutally poorly.
Well, I thought they were winning before he left.
Well, so the situation changes really quickly. So I wonder, maybe it's just a timeline thing, whereas as the story's written. But from what I understand, the most important part is that Kaladin and his bridge crew are really the heroes of this story. Because they decide all together they're going to escape and leave, but they decide that they're going to return and save Dalinar. They're going to say, you know what, this is so wrong, egregiously just terrible, that they can't abide this. They can't let this happen.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's cool. What the part that really struck me on how terrible this was for him too, I forgot that Kaladin was really struck on the similarities of this to his experience with Amaran. Yeah. And so I thought that was really powerful as well. He's like, okay, I've been here before. The shard bearers come in and people are in distress, and I've got to go save the High Prince, or in this case, it's the High Prince.
And last time it ended so poorly.
And so poorly. With all my guys, my duty is to protect them. We could be free, which is cool too. I forgot about that. They could have just pieced out. So this whole thing is just powerful for that reason. Another huge reason that it was powerful is Dalinar, from his perspective, he had just risked his life to save Sadeas. In a battle earlier, Sadeas is literally about to be killed.
Yep.
And then Sadeas abandons him anyways. This guy is terrible. Unbelievable.
And you know he had been planning this from before he was attacked, because it's the same quote that he gives. Like, your honor will be the death of you one day. Yeah. The same quote is what he told him when he saved his life. He's like, that honor of yours will be the death of you one day.
Oh my gosh!
Or will be your ruin. That was something like that.
That was in when he was attacked.
Yeah, after Dalinar saved him. Oh. He said, "Oh man, you're so honorable. I can't believe you saved me."
That snake.
That honor of yours. Yeah, he is a terrible person. Nobody likes him.
You just saved me, so I'm going to plot your death.
It's brutal. It truly is. But he gets saved.
Uh-huh.
And I know it's an amazingly powerful moment that I can't convey unless you've read the entire book. But when they come back to camp. So I guess it's a big moment to mention that when they come in with the bridge, they fight, and Kaladin speaks the second ideal and becomes even stronger. I don't know, what does he get from that, really?
So I think that he just gets pretty much an outpouring of Stormlight when that happens. It's just like an explosion.
Just a one-time thing?
I think this happens every time you go up a level.
But you would think that level up would give you some sort of new capability.
Oh, I think it did.
Like what?
I think we find out in the second book.
Oh.
Yeah. I think that he's able, and he also said that he could feel the Stormlight being more efficient. Was one of his comments too. He's like, it feels like I can do more with less.
Okay. I did recognize that he was gotten a little bit better about taking in the Stormlight. He's faster and it's easier for him. It makes more sense.
Yeah. So. But then there are other abilities I think that he's gained as well from taking that in. So yeah, the whole scene was just phenomenal. I was just blown away reading this even a second time. It's the Sanderlanch, right? It's the whole
everything
thing
happening at once.
For 5 hours, the last 5 hours of the book. How long can you be on the edge of your seat?
Okay, so that leads me to a good story, because when I was reading this, I was reading it on the drive down here to Arizona for our on-location podcast recording.
That's right.
And I was listening to that part, and I was just so in the zone, just absolutely dialed in. So I was driving, doing my thing, but my wife was like, "Oh, are you at that part?" Because she had just finished the book, right? So she's like, "Oh, are you at that part with Kaladin and Dalinar?" I'm
right.
Like, yes. That's all I had to say.
The part.
And the funniest part is the fact that 3 hours later, she's like, "Yeah, I was still in the zone. I was still cruising through the Sanderlanch."
Are you still at that part?
And she's like, "Yes." "I thought you were already at that part." I'm like, "I'm still in it." I had nothing to say. I was like, let me have this moment. Let me just drink in the power of this intensity. It's always so good. And I'm always like, oh, such a powerful moment. I kind of want to just be in that moment as long as I can.
Yep.
And so I was like, I had very short responses, but it was a very powerful, and it's long. You're right. It's so long, and you cut over, and I'm like, no way, they're gonna cut out of this at the most important part they possibly could, but they just cut over to different vantage points inside the same story, which I think is fine.
Yeah,
I was okay with that.
Yeah, like forgiven.
But it's awesome. It's one of the best parts of the entire book. When we get to our power rankings at the end of the episode, I have some thoughts.
Okay. Honestly, this whole scene is one of the reasons why this book might be one of my favorite books of all time.
Wow.
Like, I know, massive statement, but I feel like there's probably a lot of people who agree with me. I've met a lot of people who are big Wheel of Time fans, which is another massive fantasy series that
I
people
haven't read
say are good.
But people say good things.
I know. We may have to go into that series at some point too.
Yeah.
But he loves the Wheel of Time, loves it even more than the whole series of Way of Kings. But he still says the first book of Way of Kings is his favorite book of all time.
Wow.
Which is pretty telling.
Of all time. That's a big statement.
It is. And it's cool. It's not only because it's a great story, but the guy who plays Superman in
Henry Cavill.
I think it's Henry Cavill.
Oh,
I didn't want to say it because I thought I was going to be wrong.
I've ever gotten right.
I knew someone in the comments was going to drill me if I got it wrong.
No, they'll drill me if I got it wrong. I'm pretty sure that's right.
I was going to let them drill you. I was like, let Jaden say it. So no, yeah. So he was saying that he actually is a big fan of Brandon Sanderson and The Way of Kings. And he's like, it's not only a good story, but it's got great morals too. And I would have to 100% agree with that. And that's one of the reasons why it makes it so great.
He's just trying to get a part in the movie.
I know.
You know it. He's just like, oh, my favorite. I absolutely love it. Yep. Brandon Sanderson, such a cool guy.
Just give him the Dalinar part. It'd be so
He's
cool.
Working
Make
for
him
it.
Dalinar.
He's trying.
It'd be so cool. Yeah, but I think that's one of the reasons why it's so great. And we've gone through this too, about how much inspiration it gives even for leadership and all these different things you can learn for your life. It's just, you can't get better than that. It's just so good. So good.
Yeah, it is powerful. I agree.
Well written. So other things that I loved in this story, it's another parallel. So last episode we talked about parallels between different events. And of course, the scene where Dalinar gives up his shard blade.
Oh.
Yep. To Amaram. That eel, and
Sadeas, but yes, both of them are
Did I
actually
say
bad
Amaram?
people. They're both bad people.
They're terrible. It's
okay.
Terrible.
I was just avoiding you from the onslaught of comments.
I know.
You're welcome.
Could have happened. Thank you. Anyways, so he gives it up to Sadeas, and just opposite of how Amaram steals the sword from Kaladin and kills his team, Dalinar gives his shard blade away to save Kaladin's team.
Wow.
Isn't that so cool?
Brandon.
I know, what is...
Killing it with the parallels.
This guy's amazing.
It's actually juxtaposition.
Yep. There you go.
I just remembered that
Opposite
from high school.
parallels equals juxtaposition.
Yes.
And then an enemy.
Oh my goodness. One of the things we learned in this one, before we get to the power rankings, which are very close in coming. I'm very excited about it. But the visions. There's a couple of them that I really wanted to talk about. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you had any insights into the visions as well, but the first one is his conversation with Noadon.
Yep.
That one I thought was really cool.
What did you like about it?
The reason I like it is because it seems so just realistic. Because the way you hear about Way of Kings and this it's the best way to be a king and all these things, he was just this perfect guy, this honorable guy, all these things. And you don't get the opportunity to hear, he was disappointed. He was like, I stink as a leader. I'm the worst. It's like, look what I did. I tried to lead these people, and
they're all
9
dead.
out of 10 of them are dead. There's not much worse I could have done. It's honestly crazy how much ownership and accountability he takes of a desolation, and how he's like, well, I clearly should not be doing this. I'm obviously a bad leader, so I'm gonna find. There's one of the things that he says is there's no shortage of people willing to lead them. Yeah. And that's so true. Because if you take into account even just today's day and age, everyone wants more power than they have. Everyone wants leadership. Everyone wants to be in power and to have power, and once they have power, to have more power. And he's just I don't need to be doing this. Obviously, I'm incapable of this. That level of introspection is probably what makes him a good leader. Mm-hmm. But he's like, yeah, they don't want me. I shouldn't be the king. Like, someone else will step up. I guarantee it. A Sadeas figure. But it seems a lot like Kaladin, who's like, why should I lead these bridgemen? Like, I clearly can't do it. Every time I try to help people, they end up dead. Is that not exactly the same thing?
Yes, I thought that similar thing. Just Kaladin is it also shadows that he's a good leader.
Yep.
Just like Noadon is. And it also reminds me, though, this whole story, these leaders don't know what they're doing, but they do know what they're doing. And this is something I always tell people. And it just occurred to me as I get older, as I become a parent and look at my parents and the leaders that I in my work and everything, or other work. Just you kind of realize that everyone is human.
Yep.
And everyone's trying to do a good job, and there are better leaders than others. But the farther I get into life, the more I realize everyone's winging it. Whether it's the president of the United States, the CEO, everyone is just trying to. They don't know what they're doing, but they're all just trying to do their best. Parents, just everything. It's hilarious to realize that. And Noadon gives that vibe a bit too.
He totally does. He's like, I tried my best. I did everything I could, but I don't know.
I don't know what I'm doing.
And it leads to the second conversation, which isn't technically a vision, but it's Dalinar reading Wave Kings to Sadeas.
Yeah.
And he talks about the journey that Noadon took.
Yep.
And he's like, I just walked from my kingdom to Urithiru, and it's like, I just walked the whole way.
Yep.
And it's because if kings were only allowed to make rules and laws for things that they actually understood, all they would know how to declare is the temperature of tea. And it was like eye-opening, because these kings, these monarchs have just so little experience with the plight of the common man and the difficulties that they deal with. He's like, you know what? I'm going to go in there and figure it out. Like, I'm going to walk. I'm going to help people if I need to make money. I'm going to tell stories and do what I need to do to get myself
two things I'd say about that is just I loved his response to Dalinar. Dalinar's like, well, you should write a book. He's like, dude, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, it'd be like telling a parent who feels like they don't know what they're doing all day long, and they're like, well, you should write a book. They're like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't even know what I'm doing. But with what you said about the walk and doing what people would do in a not king role, it reminds me of the CEO of Southwest, the original founder and CEO of Southwest.
Herb Kelleher?
I think so.
Yes.
So he's very famous for having jumped in and done the jobs of his employees. So he's helped load the baggage into planes, and he's helped at the ticket counter, and his employees loved him for that, because he was able to see exactly what they needed, was able to help them. He was willing to do any job just because he loved doing it. He loved the people. And again, very Noadon-like figure, because you're able to just understand the people you're working with instead of just doing whatever you think is best because you're king and you know everything.
It's also very hard. I found an old bookmark clip of a part of the audiobook that I had clipped in 2021 when I first read the book.
Yeah.
And it tells a similar story from earlier that we didn't talk about one of our parts, where he talks through the king had gotten to just help people in the street, and he was lifting a stone for someone or something like that. And he's it's uncommon. No one notices when, a beggar has to move this stone. Everyone walks right by. But when the king is trying to lift the stone to move it, everyone notices. And he was just interesting how different that was, and how maybe it shouldn't be different. He's like, well, if I help these people with their problems, maybe someday they'll help me with mine, the invisible weight that a king carries.
Yeah.
And I think that was interesting in the sense that maybe you don't notice the difficulties that they're going through and all the difficult decisions they have to make and the weird politics and stuff that they have to deal with. It sounds like that's a lot harder than most people realize. I think most of the people in let's say Hearthstone are seeing the king and saying, wow, what a life, just you get tea brought to you whenever you want it. You have all these clean, comfy places to live and sleep, and you don't recognize the emotional weight that it might take to be a good king. I'm sure it's pretty easy to be a bad king.
Oh yeah. I'm sure I'd be a great bad king.
It can't be that difficult.
Yeah.
But I thought a lot of the Way of Kings and a lot of the visions and the stories that Dalinar hears and is trying to internalize really come from that perspective of you don't know what you're doing, and accepting that you don't know what you're doing, and constantly being willing to look at yourself and say, am I doing this right or am I doing this wrong? I think that capability is important as any kind of leader.
Yep. Again, an amazing book on leadership and how to learn from it. I kind of want to look at Shallan a bit before we finish.
Fair enough.
Cannot forget her story.
Yes.
did you have more about Kaladin and Dalinar?
You're probably right. We should jump into Shallan.
Because that finished with Dalinar and Kaladin. Actually, I do have more with Dalinar. When he confronts the king Elhokar at the very end.
Yes.
When he like throws him against the table
breaks
his shard plate, scares the crap out of him. I just love that whole scene. He's like, "Listen, Elhokar, like you're screwing everything up and get out of my way," pretty much. And it's like, you're going to let me be the High Prince of War, and I'm going to unite everyone my way. I thought that was a super cool way. And then at the very end, he's like, "Oh, by the way, I'm dating your mom."
Kind of awkward.
Yeah, it's so funny, and I love how he writes how Elhokar was like almost like more shocked by that. He's like, "What?"
Well, he's starting to live what he said earlier to, was it Sadeas? I don't remember, but must have been Kaladin.
Mm-hmm.
I'm remembering that wrong, but he basically says, I wanted to lead these people and unite them on morals, but in order for that to work, you have to have a certain base level of morality that we just don't have, or a base level of honor that we just don't have.
Yeah.
So first I have to treat them like children and tell them what to do. Like he was talking about how he raised his boys. He's like, first when they're a kid, you tell them this is what you have to do. And then when they get older, they can make their own decisions and build their own character off of that. But at the beginning,
love that.
You have to be like, no, you're not going to be unkempt in the war camps. You're going to follow the codes. You're going to do these things. And that's why he wants to be promoted to High Prince of War. And I think he does the same thing with Elhokar. He's like, look, this is a child, and I'm just going to be like, this is how it's going to work. And I think it's towing the line potentially sometimes, but I think he realizes near the end that that's the only possible solution, or the entire nation might crumble.
Yeah. So, I loved that. I thought that was a cool quote too. I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I almost forgot about that. It's all these little gems in this book,
and it's like 1,000 pages of gems.
I know. Like, I don't wonder where he picks up all these gems. He's just got to be writing them down somewhere. I don't know.
Well, when we get him on the show, we'll ask him. We'll write that down as one of our questions.
That's right. If we get 1,000 comments, I'm just kidding.
We get 1,000 comments,
even if it's from one single person.
Yeah, that'll happen.
I was kidding. So, but yeah, going into Shallan next. So she has that whole experience where she had been caught to be a fraud, pretty much. Mm-hmm. And she was caught trying to steal Yasna's soulcaster. And she basically comes up with an idea, though, as well. She's like, well, I'm already kind of screwed for getting the soulcaster to my family. But then she realizes that all of Yasna's soulcasters were fake. This is some part I did not catch the first time that I read it. I knew that Yasna was doing the soulcaster thing on her own, but for some reason I thought that she also must have had a working soulcaster. And now I think back on it, I'm like, I have no idea why I thought that.
The reason I thought that at the beginning, because the stones were cracking when she was using them.
Oh, maybe that's why.
It just makes it seem like a real fabrial of some sort.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So I thought that was pretty crazy how she came up and addressed that. And she's like, actually, you were using a fake the whole time. And that's why hers didn't work, right? So that was actually the most fascinating part to me, because Capsule was telling her oh yeah, everyone says it's easy. You just kind of touch the side and do your thing, and the soulcaster should work. She's like, well, it's not working. Yep. And maybe it would work that way. Maybe it would work that easy if you actually had a real soulcaster.
It probably, we have to assume that it would, but the fact that she didn't need one and she was just trying to hide it by holding one is pretty interesting.
Yeah, which is really cool. And maybe Shallan wouldn't have had to go through so much and trying to imagine everything before she ends up in Shadesmar and
almost dies multiple times.
I know, it's crazy. And then the whole thing too. The one thing that it kind of did throw me a little bit when I read this part of the book is that she is all of a sudden not really afraid of the voices that she's been hearing from the Spren that Yasna is talking about. I'm purposely avoiding what they actually are, because that's more the next book. But But she just like, okay, like voices, like take me back or whatever. And she just wasn't like afraid at all. But before she was terrified.
It has to be related to the fact she was sitting in that hospital forever. And she knew they were right next to her and there was nothing she could do. She couldn't move. She couldn't leave. So you come to the point where like, well, they haven't attacked me. Probably means they're not going to attack me. And I'm sure over time, as she's sitting in a hospital bed, she's just like, it's whatever. I mean, if they come to kill me, there's nothing I can do. And then as that they don't kill her, I'm sure she's like, well, it's just is what it is. Maybe I'm nuts.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good solution. So I thought that was a good conclusion for that, and it's cool to see Jasnah and Shallan. We get to have more of their stories. So,
yep. Well, that brings us to the final power rankings of Way of Kings, Book 1. Well, Book 1 of the Stormlight Archive. Right. What are our current 5 high-powered events?
Right. So the first part in our power rankings, first scene, is Kaladin kills the Shard Bearer that's trying to kill Amaram.
Okay.
Szeth scene, opening scene.
Okay.
Which I just realized we didn't even talk about Szeth talking with Taravangian. And turns out that Taravangian's a freaky old man. But anyways, the next one, number 3, is the bridge run.
Yep.
Kaladin's first bridge run. Number 4 is surviving the storm. Kaladin surviving the storm. And then number 5 is Shallan's first soul cast when she turns the vase to blood.
Wow. Some good moments.
Yep. So this one definitely is going to have some huge moments from this last scene. Because it's the Sanderlanch. Come on.
It is. I would probably put Kaladin saving Dalinar and Dalinar giving up the Shardblade as 2 different events.
Ooh, I would agree. Yeah, I would definitely agree.
I think they both go on the list, but I think they're separate.
Okay, which part of Kaladin saving Dalinar was your favorite?
Ooh,
which
part?
It's like a 3-hour long scene.
It is long. I think them making the decision to go and to help him is one thing, but I think the part that I really like is just if you were to cut the scene when they start running toward the chasm and end it before he talks to Adolin. I think that's the part that I think is the most powerful.
Oh, right. When he jumps across like the chasm from the bridge. I didn't even realize. I forgot all the specifics of the scene. They're like pushing the bridge across and Kaladin's running and does this sweet movie jump like across and it's like exploding with a stormlight.
It's pretty crazy.
So cool. And he has all of his flashbacks to his brother Tian dying, which is
oh my goodness,
terrible. And then he just decides that, and he speaks the oaths. It's amazing. Then he even uses the stormlight from the Parsendi's beards.
Yeah.
Like that's super cool.
Convenient.
Yeah, very convenient.
And I wouldn't have made it otherwise.
Yes, another one of those small Sanderson pieces, and they're like, I'm going to tell you about the beads in their hair for some random reason.
It would have been funnier if he just like pulled it from who knows where and then goes over and realizes he pulled it out of like Adolin's storm or his shard plate.
Adolin just falls over.
He's just laying on the ground. Nothing left.
I know. I was thinking about that. I'm like, can you get the stormlight that's leaking out of the plate and use it?
I've always been curious. I think the leaking out stormlight, it can't be used because then why wouldn't you just use it yourself?
Well, they're not Radiance. They can't
I kind of transitioned in my mind to the stormlight leaking out of Kaladin as you use the stormlight.
Oh,
it just kind of leaks out of you.
No, yeah, that part I think it makes sense. Like it's kind of just I don't know, you can't use it. But I was thinking about using their leaked storm.
We'll put it on the list of questions for
Sanderson.
Mr. Sanderson.
I know. I actually might. We may submit that one for his next question, unless a listener can answer that question for us. But
if you know, please let us know.
I'd love to know it. But yeah, so that one.
So those 2.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say that one's probably got to be number 1 so far out of like what we've got.
Which of those 2?
Oh, the Kaladin saving Dalinar. So I'll put that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Number 1.
Incredible. So Kaladin saves Dalinar.
Do we have any other scenes that we want to put into this list?
Although I want to look at the next one first. The agreement where Dalinar shoves his shard blade into the ground. Shard blade into the ground. He
trades the blade. Yep.
Trades it with Sadeas. I think that beats this scene.
Oh.
Yeah. So I think that one should be the number 1 scene out of the whole book. I think that is the greatest scene out of the book. It is the culmination of everything. It's where Kaladin's like, he's going, every single Light Eyes gives up his honor and does not actually have true honor and never keeps his word. and Dalinar gives the ultimate, like, pays the ultimate price besides his life, I guess you could say, but gives the ultimate price, which is, well
said.
You have a comment about that.
Well said. Well, you said the ultimate price besides his life, which he specifically says a little bit later.
Yes,
I traded one priceless sword for 2,600 priceless lives. Sounds like a good trade to me.
That was one of the coolest quotes of the whole book.
And I think that goes with that part. We'll have to just parentheses that.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll put it first if we can include that explanation.
Yes, and that's why I think it is number one, because it is just so cool.
Yeah, that's a powerful moment. I'll give you that. So now we've ended with a top 2 finish on this last part. Is there any other pieces of the end of the book you want to add to it?
Man, there's so many good.
There are a lot of good ones, but also we're talking about the top parts from the entire rest of the book. So,
I know. What other parts are you thinking right now?
Well, I had a few on my list of like some of the visions that I thought were especially powerful and worded really well. Like when they figure out that Dalinar is translating the Dawn chant. All these.
How cool was that?
It's all such cool stuff, but I'm like, I don't know of any of those pieces that unseat some of our top 5. So I think we're basically there. I think we've established the best 5 scenes from the Way of Kings.
Okay, well, we've got 7. We got to decide which ones are going to be eliminated.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because...
Which ones do we have to decide between? We need 3 more.
Let me read them off so far. We've got Kaladin saves Dalinar, number 1. Oh, wait, no. I'm sorry. I forgot to add this one. Excuse me.
Yikes.
Dalinar trades Shard Blade.
Yep. Good luck with autocorrect on that one.
Dude, you're seeing it happen live. My phone does not like the Way of Kings. It autocorrects everything.
I try to read my notes sometimes because I don't think about it as much when I'm trying to write them down. And I'll write something, I'm like, what did that ever say?
Like,
there's no way to go back and be like, okay, can I see what that was before you just turned it into word salad?
Yeah, it was terrible.
Anyway, sorry, that's a bit of a tangent. Okay, what are the ones we're going for?
So yeah, Dalinar trades his Shardblade. Number 2, Kaladin saves Dalinar.
Okay.
Number 3, Kaladin kills the Shardbearer.
Ooh, that's good.
I know. Number 4, Szeth, opening scene.
Also good.
Number 5, Kaladin's first bridge run. Number 6, surviving the storm. And number 7, Shallan soulcasts. Okay. I actually kind of like the order that we have right now.
I'm okay with leaving the top 5.
I kind of am wondering, I'm going back, do we like that bridge run scene over surviving the storm?
Yes.
I think I do.
Yes.
I think I do.
Do we like... Can I see your list?
Yeah, go for it. Do not look at the autocorrect or just random gibberish in there.
Okay.
It's not good.
So the only thing that I was trying to decide if Kaladin kills the Shardbearer is really a true number 3.
This part, I would say, is less the part of
we
him
included
killing...
it with Amaram's betrayal.
Yes.
Okay.
We should probably title it Amaram's betrayal.
Yep.
Betrayal.
Oh, how do you spell
Yeah, good luck. You're the grammar guy here.
These aren't grammar. These are names that he made up.
Sound it out.
I did.
I'm just kidding.
Amaram's betrayal, which I can spell. Okay.
Almost a disaster. Dropping the mic.
Drop your mic.
Mic drop.
Whoa. What an end to the podcast. Thanks, everyone, for coming.
It's
been real. See you next time.
We're not going to end it right there, are we?
Yeah, why not?
No way. No, we can't end it there. Just kidding. We're going to wrap it up before we actually finish this up. But our top 5, our final top 5.
Yes, the undisputable, except for people in the comments, top 5.
Yep. And we will dispute with you in the comments.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just kidding. But
well,
we will. If you're wrong, we'll tell you we're wrong.
If you get Marty to respond versus if you get me to respond, we'll see.
Yeah, if it's nice, it's probably Jaden. I'm just kidding.
I was going to say the opposite.
No,
cool.
I'm just kidding.
You never know who's responding to your comments. Okay, hit us with the top 5.
So, Dalinar trades his Shardblade.
Wow.
Kaladin saves Dalinar as number 2. Kaladin kills the Shardbearer in saving Amaram, but Amaram betrays Kaladin.
Ooh.
Szeth's opening scene, where he kills Gavilar. And number 5 is Kaladin's first bridge run. Guys, That was an amazing book. And those are some super hard-hitting...
Truly incredible. The way
moments.
The pictures were painted, the way the story was written, everything about it, absolutely excellent. And some have said, even Marty has said the best book ever written.
And for some reason, Jaden is not willing to go that far.
It just feels like such a high honor. I don't have any book in that spot right now. It's just too intense for me. It's just too much.
Wow.
The pedestal's too high, and I'm not that tall.
Would you say it is at least the second best book you've ever read?
Yes.
Wow. Would you say it's at least the first book?
Hey, you can't.
You saw I was going there.
I see where you're going, and it's right there. It's right there, right underneath the pedestal. And there's nothing on the pedestal right now. So if it stays that way my whole life, maybe it just, graduates to the #1 book. Who knows? But there's so many also. Get this. There's a lot of Brandon Sanderson books that I have not read. Like quite a few. Which is probably one of the things we're going to have to explore on this podcast.
We'll get there. Point. Don't worry, y'all. Don't worry.
So we'll see. We'll see if it stays in that spot. But
and there are also a lot of Sanderson Way of Kings books that have not yet been written. And I've heard some people say that they're having a hard time saying it's the best series that's ever been written because it's not finished yet.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
So, I don't know. You'll have to catch us in our next video where we will actually review The Way of Kings and give you our final rating. See if Jaden will actually give it better
than a 7?
A better than a 7.
Well, it's going to be good. We'll have a good time. It's going to be the next video that comes out after this one, so we're really excited. Hopefully we see you there. The easiest way to find those videos is if you subscribe to the channel on YouTube or follow the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
And if you would, we would really appreciate it if you left a comment, say something you liked about either the book or this series that we finished, and leave a like on the video. It makes a big difference for us. We really appreciate seeing those.
Yep. We'll be doing more Way of Kings books in the future. We're taking a slight break to go through Murtagh.
Yep.
And I think next we'll may even go into Sunlit Man or something like that. Don't put...
If you have a recommendation of where we should go in the Brandon and Sanderson...
Brandon and Sanderson,
and
then an enemy.
If you have a recommendation on where we should go next after Murtagh in the Sanderson universe, in the Cosmere, please let us know. Drop a comment if that should be a specific book, if we should go into a secret project. Who knows? And we'll definitely read those comments.
There's more Sanderson to come.
Absolutely.
We're very excited about it.